Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if the Otsutsukis started to become active during the blank period before Naruto became the Hokage Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. About a year and a half after the moon conflict concerning the Tenseigin. Yeah, he'll return soon. The current Hokage, Hitaki Kakashi, muttered while looking outside of his office. Indeed, it has been quite a while since you assigned him to that so-called S-rank mission. Haruno Sakura retorted to the former Team 7 sensei. She was standing together with Sai in front of the Hokage desk. Well, it's not like you have any other choice for the matter. But still, the timing of that mission still was kinda off, and borderline mean on your part, Sai added. You see, you gave Naruto this mission a few weeks right after he and Hinata finally admitted their feelings to each other. Sure, Naruto is always smiling and all, but I've never seen him that genuinely happy aside from those few weeks that he had with Hinata after the moon conflict. Yeah, I know. That's why before I officially gave him that mission, I made sure that Hinata was with him so I can explain the rationale of that mission. Kakashi gave a sad smile. Naruto complained, as expected, while Hinata shed a tear. The mission is something only Naruto can do, and will greatly affect not only their future but all of the shinobi world. So in the end, it all worked out. Naruto finally accepted that mission and now he's coming back. A very confidential S-rank mission that only Naruto can do, with the Hokage and his fiancée, Hinata, being the only ones knowing its entire whereabouts, Sai muttered to himself. Well, Hinata ain't that much active anymore on taking high-ranking and difficult missions since the moon incident. Sakura said with a small smile. Since Naruto's departure, she enrolled in a cooking school. And last time we met, she admitted helping on Hyuga Manor's household chores despite being literally the princess of her clan, as if preparing herself to become a perfect wife. As for my observation, she still was kinda normal for me. She doesn't show any hint of sadness during the get-together of our generation. Maybe Naruto and Hinata were communicating in some form or another. Sai said while looking towards Sakura. A long-distance relationship, huh? Sakura said as she also looked outside, through the transparent window of Hokage office, remembering the same situation with her fiancé, Uchiha Sasuke. Well, Sasuke will also be returning soon. Kakashi looked towards the two with his signature eye smile. Or rather, he's already here. All of a sudden, a space-time portal suddenly appeared on one of the Hokage office walls. From that portal, came out the lone survivor of the clan of Sharingan, Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke gave a neutral look towards Sai, a small nod towards Sakura, then walked straight towards Kakashi's table. We need to talk about something very important. Sasuke immediately said. And we need the 5 cages so we can discuss all the intel that I have gathered thus far. Straightforward with no nonsense, as always, Kakashi replied with a neutral expression. But for someone like you to say something like that while also requiring the 5 cages presence, just what kind of dangerous information do you have, Sasuke? As if contemplating a bit before deciding the most precise word he can say at the moment, Sasuke said the word in a very serious tone. Otsutsuki. With just that one word, Kakashi narrowed his eyes while Sakura and Sai displayed a mix of surprised and worried expressions. Indeed, any Otsutsuki matter is definitely a 5-cage matter. Kakashi looked down while lightly slamming both his hands towards his table. If that's the case, we will also need to include Naruto, since the two of you are currently the only ones with direct links and also have already fought against an Otsutsuki. It is already a given. Sasuke once again replied in a no-nonsense gesture. All these are very dangerous information and will cause chaos if known by the populace. So we better keep this confidential while preparing the best course of action. Sasuke said as he also looked towards Sakura and Sai. Tension immediately filled the entire room. After almost a minute of silence. So, is Naruto still in that place? Sasuke asked. Yes. But he'll be returning soon. Kakashi replied. Might be tomorrow, might be in 3 days, but not more than a week. Sasuke nodded. Good to know that I'm not the only one preparing for whatever this future might hold. Once he returns, I'd also like to see how much he has grown before I relay everything that I happen to know. Alright. However, if the two of you will ever gonna do some sparring match, then do it somewhere far away. It would be bad if the two of you destroys the village accidentally just by flexing. Kakashi gave a wry smile. Sakura and Sai also gave a difficult expression due to Sasuke's previous statement. Well, for now, I am glad you returned home in one piece. Sakura walked towards Sasuke. I think I'll have you rest for now and serve you a nice warm meal. Sasuke looked towards her, then lessened his personal tension. Yeah, I guess I'll take your offer. Sasuke said with a small smile. After Sakura lightly bowed to their former sensei, she linked her left arm with Sasuke's right arm, then walked out of the Hokage office. Kakashi then instructed the remaining shinobi in his office. Tell the communication in charge about what you have heard. An emergency 5-cage summit must commence this week. As you wish, Hokage-sama. With Sai leaving his front desk, Kakashi then sat on his desk and sighed. Sasuke has returned, and Naruto will also be here in a few more days. Kakashi thought, I can no longer prolong the implementation of that law. Or the economic side of Konoha will suffer because of those daimyos. Scene change. Night time, just outside of Konoha's shopping district. Hinata Hyuga casually walked on her way home with her left hand carrying plastic bags and her right hand gently hugging a paper bag. She's walking while humming in a very low, quiet voice. After crossing a few intersections before the Hyuga Manor, she then looked towards one specific location. It was a 2-floor apartment where someone so dear to her used to live. To think that you used to live here, Naruto-kun. Hinata muttered to herself. Once your current mission is over, I'll make sure to never leave your side ever again, she said as she resumed her walk on her way home. Scene change. A few days later. And here I thought we'll have a cage summit through online communication, Kakashi said with a deadpan face while looking towards the other 4 cages from other respective hidden villages. The 5 cages and their respective escorts, together with the Konoha 11 and Uchiha Sasuke, and other excited citizens of Konoha were now standing in front of the gate of the east wing of Konohagakure. It is an Otsutsuki matter. So to prevent the information leak, it will be better to discuss everything about it face to face, closed door. Mei Terumi said to Kakashi in a low voice to ensure that the ordinary citizens behind them won't hear him. Well, but that doesn't mean you'll have to be inconvenienced like this. I mean, waiting for someone to arrive in the middle of the day together with us. Kakashi rebutted. Well, that someone happens to be the hero of the 4th Shinobi World War, and also the one who defeated that Otsutsuki from the moon that threatened our planet's destruction. Unoki replied to Kakashi this time, levitating with his arms crossed and having a huge smirk on his old face. It will be a privilege to welcome him back not as a cage, but as his friend. Gaara said with a peaceful smile on his face. I wonder if I should challenge him to a spar to see how much stronger he had already become. The Raikage said while flexing both his fingers. I don't think you'll ever be a match against him at this point. Sasuke said to the Raikage without looking, making the Raikage's eyebrow twitch in annoyance. The Raikage was about to rebut but Kakashi positioned himself in the middle of the two. Not now, gentlemen, Kakashi said, as he looked towards the gate. It's about time, he's here. Everyone looked towards the gate with expecting eyes. Most of them were expecting something flashy to happen, knowing Naruto's usual hyperactive demeanor, during his arrival. However, much to their surprise, they just saw a man in a hooded cloak, with tattered hemline of that said cloak touching the ground, entering their field of vision. No fancy something or anything. Just a man casually walking towards their direction, to the point that they even wonder who that hooded person is. All of a sudden, Hinata ran from the crowd towards the direction of the hooded man, while Sasuke gave a small sigh, then gave a small smirk. It's him, Sasuke said, much to the surprise of Sakura who's standing beside him. But his presence is entirely different. Sakura replied to Sasuke. HNN. Sasuke just closed his eyes, still maintaining the same confident smirk. Naruto-kun. Hinata threw herself towards the hooded person, while the hooded person immediately caught the girl, and the two hugged each other. The hug removed the hood and the tattered clothing that was concealing the person, revealing the same blonde, spiky-haired shinobi complete with his signature whisker marks on his cheeks. I'm home, Hinata. Naruto whispered with a smile to the girl hugging him. The two tightened their embrace for a few more seconds, before releasing each other. Naruto then raised his right arm, fist pumping upwards. I'm back TT Ibeo. His confident voice echoed, making those waiting at the gates cheered after confirming the return of their hero. The children then ran towards him while Hinata stepped backward a bit, still teary-eyed due to their reunion. Wow, it really is Naruto, but at the same time, he feels like an entirely different person, Tenten commented. Indeed, Naruto's facial and physical appearance was still almost the same as that of when they were fighting against the exploding humans during the Ketsuryugan incident that happened more than a year and a half ago, from his long-sleeved black shirt and orange-colored pants, and with the same short, neat-looking hair back then. Yeah, he looks much more mature and dependable than he used to. Must be that sage cloak that he's wearing right now, Ino said while observing the blonde shinobi. Indeed, on top of his long-sleeved black shirt, he is now wearing a Junin vest, while also donning the same red sage cloak that he used to wear during his fight against Pain, albeit much longer now as it's black, flame-like designed hemline now nearly touching the ground and a high collar similar to the fourth Hokage's coat. Looking at him like that, no one can dispute now that this classmate of ours is indeed the son of the fourth Hokage. Shikamaru said with a huge grin on his face. After all, aside from minor facial features and hairstyle differences, Naruto's appearance right now is nearly identical to that of the fourth Hokage, Minato Namikaze. After a few more minutes of cheers and celebration, Kakashi instructed everyone to dismiss, as the committee began moving in preparation of the 5-Cage summit that was scheduled to happen in the evening. Scene change. I just arrived after more than a year of doing that mission, and all of a sudden, I suddenly am with you guys for the 5-Cage summit. Naruto said with a complaining tone. Beside her was Hinata in her casual clothing, her left arm linked with Naruto's right arm. The Hokage's conference room was now occupied by the 5-Cages, each of them having their most trusted shinobi standing right behind them. The cages are sitting in a semicircle, facing Sasuke who was currently standing in front of them together with Sakura, while Naruto was standing a meter or two behind the cages with Hinata. That mission, you mean, training mission? Sasuke rebutted with a small smirk. You don't mind if I disclose that now that you have already returned, right? An S-rank training mission that specifically only Naruto-kun can do, Hinata said with a small voice. Training? Huh? Gaara's side glanced towards Naruto. Well, you know what happened during the moon incident, right? We fought another Otsutsuki, and that Otsutsuki can rival the power of my Biju Sage mode back then. He might not be as powerful as Kagaya, but still, ordinary shinobi won't have any chance of fighting against him. Naruto said, remembering his clash with Tonari Otsutsuki on the moon. That alone should give us an overview of how powerful each Otsutsuki was, Hinata added, this time with confident tone. As far as I know, you didn't use your most powerful form against that Otsutsuki from the moon. I mean, that form you used against Uchiha Madara and Kagaya Otsutsuki, Raikage replied, him referring to Naruto's six-path sage mode. So there still is a window for you and Uchiha Sasuke if ever another powerful Otsutsuki threatens our world once again. Might be. But what if the next Otsutsuki to appear will be on the same level on the likes of Kagaya, or even stronger? Tsuchikage Unoki replied. Remember that Naruto and the Uchiha weren't actually able to defeat the mother of all chakra. So that's what you were thinking, old man. Mizukage made Terumi sighed as she spoke. While that might be possible in the lowest chance, ain't that a bit too far-fetched? Not really. Sasuke intervened. And that's the reason itself why I have Kakashi gather you all here immediately. I don't like the feel of this. Gaara narrowed his eyes. About Kagaya Otsutsuki, the so-called mother of all chakra that Naruto and I fought and sealed together using the power we acquired from the Sage of the Six Paths, Sasuke closed his eyes. She is indeed an all-powerful being, comparable to a god. However, regardless of how powerful she is, she still created thousands of white zetsus using the Shinju in preparation for something. Just imagining a being like her preparing that huge army for something gnaws me. So I have Kakashi sent me on a mission to investigate whatever traces or remnants that might point out any information, no matter how trivial it may be. And what did you find out during your mission? Kakashi said as he looked towards Sasuke seriously. Using the Rinnegan, I have verified that the White Zetsu army that were used by Obito and Madara during the war were the same White Zetsus that Kagaya have created eons ago. Those White Zetsus were sealed somewhere during the same time that the Sage of the Six Paths and the Sage of the Moon sealed Kagaya from the past. And that seal was unlocked during the time that Madara awakened his Rinnegan, allowing Obito to access and use that army during the previous war. And what does this all mean? The Raikage clenched his fists. Just a hypothesis, but a very logical one unless further information invalidates this. Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Kagaya Otsutsuki, with all her powers and abilities, is very wary of something that she can foresee. And that something is so dangerous that someone like her needs to create an army in preparation for it. And that something, and I am hoping I might be wrong, is the threat of an existence even greater than Kagaya herself. And with Kagaya and the White Zetsu army now gone for good, that threat might soon appear in this very era we're on. Silence then filled the conference room. A mere thought of a threat greater than the goddess of chakra alone was too much to handle, even for cages like them. You mean, there's actually something more powerful than Kagaya was out there, somewhere? Sakura exclaimed. It's definitely a possibility, and it actually won't be that surprising if it is not just a single being, but multiple beings, each with around the same level of power as her. Sasuke replied monotonously. So what now? How do we tell the populace about such a threat? The entire world was just in the middle of recuperating from the effects of all the previous wars that this world has been through. Mei Terumi asked in a downcasted expression. We won't tell anyone, for now, Unoki said in a resolute tone. It might be a very logical hypothesis, but still no different than a hunch. We will need to mobilize preparations within the shadows like we always used to. For now, let an old man like me enjoy my tenure before I step down as a Tsuchikage. That's right. Sasuke nodded. For now, I'll just continue my investigation regarding the matter. And I need to act alone. Do not let my actions be known aside from those who are in attendance in this room. I'll continue my top secret mission. Are you sure you don't want me to tag along, Sasuke? Naruto asked. No need. Someone like you needs to stay in the village. Sasuke replied. You have just returned after your mission. And besides, it will only create unnecessary problems if you come with me. Harsh as always. Naruto sighed in defeat. But still, what kind of training did you do for it to be considered as an S-class mission? Sakura asked, more in a complaining tone. I bet Sasuke and even me can do whatever S-rank training mission you've been through. I did it to complete my training course as the next Toad Sage, as the Arrow Sennin's successor, Naruto said with a sad smile. Everyone in the room understood what Naruto meant. The former Toad Sage, Jiraiya, was a very important person for Naruto's growth, as a shinobi and as a person. The old sage sacrificed his life to create a better future for the blonde shinobi, and that sacrifice became one of the most important stepping stones that made the world as it is right now. So, you're now a fully trained, certified Toad Sage, Naruto. Kakashi said with an eye smile. Yeah, and I'll make sure to make Arrow Sennin proud. Naruto replied with his usual confident grin. However, I still have one question. I know that we have already talked about this since the previous Cage Summit. But you can't blame me for being redundant. Raikage asked with a serious expression. Is it really alright for all the 9 Bijus to be sealed into one person? Ain't that will give too much power to that single person, let alone the village he's affiliated with. Everyone in the conference room, except Sasuke and Sakura, looked towards Kakashi, then at Naruto. Kakashi looked towards the Raikage with unwavering eyes while Naruto simply scratched the back of his head with a goofy expression. Indeed, after the Fourth Shinobi World War, both the Yin and the Yang Kurama decided to stay and be sealed within Naruto, as the Ninetales have grown too accustomed to the only Jinchuriki whom he actually had a mutual connection with. However, due to them being separated for too long, both Kyubis have regenerated their lost halves, and such, technically became separate entities with each of their respective chakra prowess comparable to that of their chakra level before being split in half by the fourth Hokage's Shiki Fujin. This made Naruto the Jinchuriki of the two Kyubis. However, after an Moon incident, all the other Bijus, from Shukaku to Gyuki, have decided to also be sealed together within Naruto despite some protests from Raikage and Mizukage under the pretense of absolute power corrupts absolutely. However, it was the tailed beasts themselves that decided to be sealed within Naruto out of their own free will, with their reasoning that some powerful beings like another Otsutsuki might still be lurking out there, so Naruto needs as much power as he could acquire to combat such threats. And the decision became a done deal after the threat of Tonari Otsutsuki. Kakashi also reasoned that while the hidden villages and the entirety of the elemental nations approved a treaty to never approach the tailed beasts again, some half-baked hidden organizations tried to abduct some of the Bijus to use their power or control them. While the Bijus were able to fend them off and the offenders were apprehended and punished accordingly, Kakashi pointed out that as long as there were such individuals, the Bijus will always be considered as tools to be used to stir chaos within the shinobi world. And since Naruto already has a fragment of all the tailed beasts that he acquired during the Fourth War, it became a sound agreement that Naruto should become the Jinchuriki of all the tailed beasts as he was the only shinobi capable of properly communicating and has a mutual connection with them. Well, I know that you guys still were wary about it, but, Naruto said with a small smile, the Bijus were like siblings created by the Sage of the Six Paths directly from the Jubi. They were roaming all over the land for centuries, treated as dangerous beings, being used as tools, and using them as such were one of the main reasons why our world became as it is. However, they are still their own individual. They have their own wills. Ain't it a bit too much to still treat them as tools and weapons just because of their power, and still not treat them as another sentient being just like the rest of us? The Raikage looked seriously towards Naruto. Octopops treated the Hachibi as a comrade. You know that better than anyone else, Raikage old man. It was painful for Gyuki to leave Octopops behind, but he still left him fragments of his chakra as his pseudo-Jinchuriki. It is proof that they have a strong bond. What I mean to say is, it's not like I want to become the Jinchuriki of all the tailed beasts, and also that doesn't mean that I don't like them either to be with me. This is their choice. They want to do their part in preserving our current peace. If we still can't accept their own choice, aren't we just the same as Madara and Kagaya who intended to impose their will against us? Naruto-kun, Hinata looked towards Naruto with sad, understanding eyes. Now she finally understood why Naruto accepted the S-rank training mission. Silence filled the room for a few tens of seconds after Naruto's speech. And as if to break the ice, Sasuke lightly grunted. Anyways, I believe that sage training wasn't the only thing you did for more than a year. Well, of course. You've been refining your mastery over Rinnegan during the same time period, right? Naruto said with a confident smirk. So I need some few additional tricks up my sleeve to level the playing field. Interesting, Sasuke said with a smirk. Why don't we have a little spar then? Since we still don't have any concrete information of what lies ahead, and with the two of us might be the only ones capable of battling against an Otsutsuki, I need to have an overview of what you're currently capable of. Yeah, I also am training while thinking of how I will be able to fight properly against you and your powerful eyes, Sasuke. Naruto smirked towards his best friend and rival. To the training grounds, then. Wait, you two. Kakashi halted his former students. I can't allow the two of you to do your spar on the regular training grounds. You might accidentally destroy the village if things got too heated up. In that case, Sasuke then created a space-time portal using his Rinnegan eyes. With my current mastery over Rinnegan, I am capable of doing this space-time portal. With this, I can travel through Kagaya's dimensions and continue doing my investigation about the Otsutsukis. So we'll be doing our thing in there, right? Naruto replied. Yes. However, my mastery over this space-time jutsu is still quite low and consumes a lot of chakra. So I can only take a few of you with me. So the Naruto, Sasuke, the 5 cages, with Hinata and Sakura. Kakashi announced. Everyone in the room reluctantly agreed, as if they were also interested in how things will turn out. The right-hand shinobi of each cage, on the other hand, didn't rebut, as they accepted to be left behind. Once we arrived at one of Kagaya's dimensions, I'll have Sakura patch up the chakra I used for this jutsu's activation. Because I have a feeling that doing this spar against you with such handicap won't do me any good. Sasuke said as he walked inside the portal. Sakura nodded in response. The cages agreed as they followed the Rinnegan user within the portal, then followed by Sakura. Naruto then looked towards Hinata, then gave her a comforting smirk. Sorry, Hinata, as much as I want to spend time with you right after I return, things became like this. We need to do this one way or another. But I promise you that we'll spend time together right after this. Yes, I missed you so much. Hinata leaned her head softly into Naruto's shoulder. Just be careful out there, okay? Naruto then flashed his signature grin towards his loving girlfriend as the two walked together as they enter the portal. Scene change. The 5 cages with Sakura and Hinata stood in one of the elevated grounds of Kagaya Otsutsuki's Genesis dimension. Just like in the shinobi world, a moon was visible thousands of kilometers above the ground. And it was no other than the 6 paths, Shibaku Tensei, that Naruto and Sasuke have created to seal the goddess of chakra during the climax of the 4th Shinobi World War. Standing a few hundred meters away from them were Naruto and Sasuke, tens of meters away from each other. The two looked towards each other, both with a confident grin and slight seriousness in their gestures. I won during our first battle. I admitted my loss on the second battle. Both happened at the Valley of the End. Sasuke said in monotone. Both of us have a lot on our shoulders back then, Naruto replied. But this time, we'll be fighting as fellow shinobi of Konoha, as equals. And with a flick of the blowing wind, the two vanished from where they were currently standing, followed by a massive impact and succeeding shockwaves in a fragment of a second. Naruto and Sasuke's arms clashed simultaneously, creating a massive crater of shattered rocks below them due to the sudden impact, followed by a massive gust of wind that could be felt by the cages despite being a few hundred meters away from the two. Sasuke then leapt back while Naruto skidded backwards. The Uchiha then transformed his Sharingan into Eternal Mangekyo, then projected a miniature Susanoo skeletal arm extending down from his destroyed left arm, supplementing the said missing limb. He then summoned 8 regular-sized shurikens, 4 on his right hand and another 4 on his left hand, and then sharply threw them towards Naruto. The Uzumaki, on the other hand, summoned a tri-pronged kunai on both hands, much to the surprise of Kakashi and the Raikage, as both of them were quite familiar with that weapon. Naruto then deflected the incoming set of shurikens using the said special kunais. The very moment that he deflected all the shurikens, Sasuke appeared right in front of him, his own sword equipped on his right hand aiming to slash Naruto using a diagonal side swing. Naruto deflected the sword slash with his tri-pronged kunai on his left hand, then aimed to slash Sasuke with the other kunai on his right hand. The Uchiha dodged narrowly, with Naruto cutting a part of the Uchiha's cape. However, Sasuke's still active, Susanoo's left arm, aimed to punch the blonde shinobi, but Naruto tilted his head to also narrowly dodge the blow. The two continued to clash, defending and attacking in hair's breadth, through skillful use of taijutsu and bukijutsu for a few more seconds, with unbelievable speed and accuracy. Some of their deflected attacks even created shockwaves and wind slashes that could reach a few tens to hundreds of meters. How is this even possible? Sakura muttered in surprise. Sasuke-kun was using his Sharingan, yet Naruto was able to fight on par with him in such close proximity. I always thought that hand-to-hand combat was one of Naruto's exploitable weaknesses. I bet the Toad sages drilled it to his head, Kakashi replied to Sakura, but still have a surprised expression on his face. Despite Sasuke using the Sharingan's precognitive visual abilities, Naruto was still able to fight toe-to-toe against him. And the only way for me to think how Naruto can be able to do this was because of his senjutsu's precognitive sensing ability. But, Naruto was clearly not yet in sage mode, doesn't he? Mei Terumi asked in a side glance towards Kakashi. Might be a stretch, but not entirely impossible, that Naruto might be able to use at least senjutsu's precognitive sensing despite not entering sage mode right now after his training. And besides, even before his S-rank training mission, Naruto had already vastly improved his hand-to-hand combat skills. According to the reports, he was able to easily fend off hundreds of Tonari Otsutsukis puppets that invaded Konoha while attempting to save Hinata with mere taijutsu. For an overview of how impressive that feat was, Hiyashi Hyuga, the Hyuga clan leader who specialized in taijutsu, barely survived the battle against 10 of those same kinds of puppets beforehand. Kakashi answered without taking his eyes off the battle. But I think that's not just all, right, Raikage? That brat, for him to use those damn Forsaken kunais. Raikage narrowed his eyes, remembering the weapons that Naruto was currently using. It would also not be a stretch if he can now also use the fourth Hokage's specialty just you. You mean, that jutsu? Tsuchikage Onoki muttered with a surprised expression, as he suddenly remembered that those were the same weapons that Minato Namikaze used to single-handedly wipe out an army of 1,000 troops from his village that earned him a flea on-site command from the opposing army during the Third Shinobi World War. The successors of the Sage of the Six Paths distanced each other from themselves after another heated exchange, both not having any hint of exhaustion from the earlier skirmish. Naruto then performed his own signature jutsu, creating 2 copies of Kage Bunshin on both sides. As if I'd let you. Sasuke then needed chakra within him, then fired a massive fire-based jutsu as he landed back on the ground. Kaden. Gouka Meikyaku. That was Madara's. Gaara said in surprise. The massive fire jutsu enveloped the land, its potency shaking the battlefield. Indeed, it was one of Madara Uchiha's signature fire jutsu, but Sasuke's version was now more potent and powerful than the said legendary Uchiha. Naruto-kun, Hinata muttered in a worried tone to her fiancé. As the massive fire jutsu scorched the battlefield, an eerie, whirling sound echoed beneath the flaming land. And in an instant, a Rasenshuriken pierced the Kaden jutsu, dividing the massive flames in half, dashing at massive speeds towards Sasuke. The Uchiha then extended his right arm, attempting to use the chakra absorption ability of the Rinnegan against the incoming Rasenshuriken. Despite the incoming jutsu being an S-rank technique, with Naruto's current skills and level, Sasuke assumed that this jutsu was just a mere distraction against him in preparation for additional succeeding attacks, so he already anticipated to counterattack even with the smallest opening. However, at the last moment, before the jutsu came in contact and be absorbed by the Rinnegan user, it popped, revealing one of the tri-prong kunai that he used on their earlier clash. And the timing of dispelling the transformation caught Sasuke literally off guard. Right now, with a moment's hesitation even for a fraction of a second, the tri-prong kunai will land and inflict some serious physical damage on his right arm. So he used his own signature space-time jutsu, the Amenetejikara, to swap places with incoming kunai. The said tri-prong kunai was now behind Sasuke, continuing its streak forward, distancing itself away from the Uchiha. And as Sasuke anticipated, Two more Rasenshurikens appeared in a semicircular, arcing direction, each incoming from both his sides. The two incoming Rasenshurikens pierced the divided remnants of Sasuke's earlier fire jutsu, creating a majestic scene for the spectators. But for Sasuke, this is not the time to join the others' amazement. The Rinnegan user immediately extended both his right arm and his Susanoo limb left arm, and then performed another Rinnegan-specific jutsu. Shinra Tensai. The repelling impact of the jutsu dispelled the incoming Rasenshurikens at the last second from both his sides while also creating a crater beneath him in the process. He could have just maneuvered himself to dodge or deflect the Rasenshurikens, but due to the earlier surprise transformation attack from his rival, he cannot take chances and get caught off guard once again. So repelling all the incoming attacks and recomposing himself even for a few seconds will be enough for him to regain his footing and perform a counter-offensive. But just as the Shinra Tensai's repulsive force subside, Sasuke's precognitive visuals saw another incoming tri-pronged kunai aimed. But this time, Sasuke used his sword and aimed to repel the incoming kunai using the said weapon. However, much to Sasuke's surprise, before he could deflect the incoming kunai, Naruto appeared a few meters behind him, grabbing the first tri-pronged kunai that he targeted through a Menetejikara a few seconds earlier. I knew it, this jutsu, the fourths. Sasuke muttered as he gave a side glance to Naruto that used Hiraishin on the earlier kunai. The said Naruto then pivoted himself midair, then threw the same Hiraishin kunai back towards Sasuke at massive speeds. So this was his aim, to take advantage of Shinra Tensai and a Menetejikara's cooldown window and attack me with one decisive strike. Sasuke then resolved to continue blocking the second incoming kunai in front of him using his sword, and right after, intended to immediately maneuver himself to deflect the other kunai that was thrown by Naruto behind him. As his sword was about to deflect its intended target, another Naruto flashed towards his sword's targeted kunai, then used the same kunai to block the sword that was swung to deflect it, once again surprising Sasuke. With his sword swing being stalled by a Kage Bunshin, the kunai thrown by the other Naruto from behind can now hit him with Sasuke not being able to defend himself. That's why. To think that you would drive me to corner like this, you have grown, Naruto. However, Sasuke immediately cast and clad himself with the skeletal ribcage of Susanoo, just in time to protect himself from the kunai aimed at him from behind, then proceeded to cut down the Kage Bunshin in front of him using one of his Susanoo's swords. Upon seeing the opposing Susanoo, the original Naruto who was behind Sasuke immediately leapt away, creating considerable distance from the massive chakra construct. The Uchiha then began aiming and firing multiple chakra arrows from the projected bow by his half-body Susanoo. The blonde shinobi began dodging Susanoo's long-distance attacks while Sasuke began firing more and more arrows. This time, the cooldown of his Shinra Tensai and Menetejikara has been reset, with Sasuke resolving to only use the said jutsus once he felt like he was in a much direr situation than before. He immediately understood that due to Naruto having fought plenty of Rinnegan users, he already knew its weaknesses and that he was now capable of devising numerous unpredictable attack patterns against those who wield such powerful eyes. Naruto then leapt high, about a few good hundreds of meters above the ground. Naruto then sharply threw the single Hiraishin kunai from his hand towards the morphing Susanoo. However, Sasuke aimed to deflect that Hiraishin kunai and hit Naruto at the same time with his Susanoo's arrow. If you will not access your transformations, then I will no longer intend to prolong this battle, Sasuke said as he fired the Susanoo's arrow, its trajectory aimed directly towards Naruto and his speeding kunai. Naruto simply smirked. And with a completed hand seal. Taju kunai Kage Bunshin no jutsu. The lone thrown tri-pronged kunai then multiplied from tens to hundreds, and all the multiplied kunais rained down towards Sasuke and his Susanoo. Naruto, on the other hand, created a Rasengan to block and shatter the chakra arrow fired towards him by Sasuke's Susanoo. The impact sent him hurling further above the ground. The Susanoo barely received any damage due to the rain of kunais. While still wary, Sasuke wondered why Naruto fired such mere kunai against the impenetrable defense of his Susanoo. However, he can't take his eyes away from Naruto right now, or he will be once again bombarded by chains of various unpredictable jutsus. Congo FUSA. And with a single hand seal while still flinging midair, Naruto's voice suddenly echoed on the battlefield. In that instance, multiple chakra chains emerged from the tip of the handle of each Hiraishin kunai that was pinned from the ground. The so-called adamantine chakra chains, a sealing jutsu that can only be used by those from Uzumaki clan with powerful chakra and life force, suddenly completely wrapped Sasuke's half-body Susanoo. This is similar to Karen's chains. No, this is much stronger. Sasuke muttered once again in surprise. The chakra chains began tightening one after another, and each layer of wrapped chains started to inflict damage on the struggling Susanoo, forming cracks on each part of its body. Sasuke gritted his teeth, as he began channeling additional chakra to his Susanoo to prevent it from totally breaking apart and inflicting huge damage to him. On the other hand, on the apex of the impact between Naruto's Rasengan and Sasuke's chakra arrow, Naruto began descending, with another massive jutsu in tow. Amanamahashira. Naruto fired a massive semi-translucent sphere charged from both his hands that were cupped together to one certain point. The semi-translucent sphere was acting as a pseudo-container for the swirling multiple regular-sized Rasengan within it. Wah! Sasuke began releasing his full power, as his Susanoo began glowing within the bindings of Naruto's chakra chains. The Susanoo began increasing its size, shattering the chakra chains that were binding it simultaneously. And with one mighty yell, the chakra chains shattered, as the perfect Susanoo was formed, blowing away and popping all the Hiraishin kunai clones that were spread all over the ground. However, it was too late for Sasuke to realize as the Amanamahashira was already halfway towards him and his perfect Susanoo. Sasuke then used his perfect Susanoo's sword to slash the incoming sphere that enclosed multiple Rasengans. The slash created a massive crevice in the ground below, enough to fit a mountain range or two. However, as the sphere of Amanamahashira dispersed, the multiple amounts of Rasengan swirling within it have been released and continued their aim towards Sasuke's ethereal construct. Naruto landed on the ground, and with a single hand seal, the multiple Rasengan then transformed into Rasenshurikens. Each of the Rasenshurikens landed on the right side of the perfect Susanoo, shattering major parts of the chakra construct in the process. Amazing! Sakura has her mouth hanging, together with the other Kages watching the scene. Naruto's combination of shinobi fundamentals, Hiraishin, Kage Bunshin, and such was able to fight and even once again corner a Rinnegan user, and he did all these without entering any of his power-ups. Hinata, on the other hand, while she also felt surprised, was more proud of how strong Naruto is right now. Some shinobi said that Naruto was only strong due to him having access to Tailed Beast's power. But this time, he was clearly showing his full potential without using any of his power-ups. Just imagining the combination of Kage Bunshin and Hiraishin will be more than enough to keep his opponents at wit's end. However, shall we continue, Sasuke? Naruto said calmly with a small smirk on his face. He still has the same confident smirk, but his calm demeanor was entirely different than the usual boisterous self that he used to have up to the end of the Fourth Shinobi War. Yeah, Sasuke replied, this time, with a much more serious expression. His perfect Susanoo was now levitating a few hundred meters above the ground, its form fully restored after the earlier damage, his serious eyes fixated on the one challenging him and driving him to the corner. After all, he didn't expect Naruto to grow this much. Sure, he was also training to fully master the abilities that he acquired from the Sage of the Six Paths and his Rinnegan, and was quite sure that his mastery over these powers can now even rival that of Uchiha Madara. But the level of Naruto's growth greatly surprised him to the point that he is quite envious of him. The Uchiha shook his head. He was already able to finally let go of this darkness within his heart during the last time he fought with Naruto. Despite the crimes he committed, the shinobi nation still accepted him. That's why he will never betray that trust again. If Naruto had grown this much, the more reason for him to also try harder and continue surpassing his closest friend. On the other hand, Naruto clapped both his hands in front of his chest, his eyes now closed. The supposed to be prosthetic arm created from Hashirama's cells now became a natural part of his body, as if it was now his own flesh and blood. Naruto knew by himself that this was likely because both he and the first Hokage were transmigrants of one of the sage of the Six Paths sons, Ashura Otsutsuki. So the first Hokages in his very own flesh, chakra, and life force melded properly after continuously training with the toads during the past year. And as he opened his eyes, he released a torrent of massive chakra that greatly surprised everyone watching the fight, including Sasuke. This chakra, Sasuke muttered as he felt a shiver down his spine. Sure though, the chakra he was feeling right now wasn't on the level as that of Kagaya Otsutsuki, but his body remembered the fear he felt when he first felt such a potent, powerful chakra. Is similar to the first Hokage. No, this chakra levels now surpassed that of the first S. The chakra that Naruto emitted shook the ground and caused the atmosphere around them to tremble. Then, the chakra enveloped him into a dense, thick cloak akin to Biju chakra mode, albeit a version way different than his past power-ups. Naruto was now clad in a bluish-white chakra shroud, the shroud itself radiating flickering flame-like chakra reminiscent of Tonari Otsutsuki's Tenseigen chakra mode. And the most surprising part is that the form also has 10 truth-seeking balls levitating in a circular pattern behind him. What is that form? Sasuke asked with narrowed eyes. His voice was low enough for the cages not to hear them despite him being on his perfect Susanoo. Ashura chakra mode, Naruto muttered calmly in more or less the same volume of voice as Sasuke's. A chakra mode that can be used by those who were able to mutate their Byakugan to Tenseigen. The form itself was used by the Six Paths old man's brother, Hamura Otsutsuki, so that both of them can fight together against the 10 tails from the past. But you don't have the Tenseigen, let alone the Byakugan. Sasuke retorted. How come you can access such transformation? Well, this wasn't the Tenseigen chakra mode to begin with. But it is from the same concept. When Hamura departed from Earth to Moon to guard Kagaya's sealed body, he left a scroll to the Six Paths old man. That scroll contained the secrets of accessing this specific jutsu. Hamura said that the said scroll must be given to the person whom Hagoromo will choose as the successor of Ninshu. Naruto continued. And that was Ashura Otsutsuki, as we knew it. And the sage of the Six Paths gave that scroll to Ashura to give him a better chance while fighting against Indra, the son who inherited his powerful chakra and eyes. And that same scroll was stored for eons on Mt. Myokobu, waiting for someone capable of unlocking it like Ashura. Sasuke summarized. But that still doesn't answer my question. Well, the Tenseigen chakra mode indeed was only accessible to Tenseigen users. But according to Hamura's scroll, it was a misconception. Naruto then continued with a smirk. The Tenseigen merely acts as a cheat to bypass the requirements to unlock that power. After all, the main requirement was for a shinobi to have multiple chakra origins that were compatible with each other and meld them together. However, it can only be melded through certain conditions. In Ashura's case, it was his own chakra and the sage of the Six Paths chakra being compatible and melding together, creating a more powerful chakra that allowed Ashura to access that chakra mode despite not having Tenseigen. After all, he is not even a Hyuga to begin with. That's why it was named Ashura chakra mode. That's also why Ashura was able to enter chakra modes and even use Biju mode like chakra avatars capable of fighting against Indra's perfect Susanoo despite him not being a Jinchuriki on his own. So in my case, since I have my own chakra, then with the installation of my right arm, an arm created from the first Hokage's DNA and chakra itself, my body was suddenly able to contain additional chakra origin from the first Hokage himself, and that happened to be completely compatible with mine since both of us are Ashura's transmigrants. I see. However, a lot of other shinobi such as Danzo and Madara used the first Hokage's DNA. But how come they weren't able to unlock that power? There is an additional requirement, doesn't it? Sasuke asked again. It is a concept similar to Mangekyo to Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. To access such amounts of power, a requirement or sacrifice must be met in return. There are multiple requirements according to the Elder Toad Sage. 1. The multiple chakra origin must be compatible with each other. You can't mix oil and water, right? Second, it can only be unlocked by a shinobi with huge amount of chakra reserves and life force. According to the Toad Sages, the chakra modes require huge amount of chakra to activate. It requires a certain threshold of chakra for the user to even access it. For example, chakra modes require at least 1000 units to be accessible and 500 units to maintain up to a specific amount of time. A regular shinobi only has 50 units more or less. I'm merely making up those numbers and units. In fact, it might be far greater than that actually, but that's the overview more or less. Third, both chakra origins in question should be on the same level, more or less. It is because even if the chakra origins are compatible, but if not on the same level, then one of the chakra origins will override or consume the other. That's why I still trained hard so that my very own chakra, without Biju's influence, to reach the levels of the first Hokages before trying to access the chakra mode. Fourth, despite meeting the above three conditions, the original chakra origin and the other chakra origin must be able to meld together and make the original chakra origin of the user evolve into an entirely new, more potent chakra. Because some chakra might be compatible, but they will create different results. Just like that of Madara using Hashirama's chakra and DNA, but the end result will be the creation of Rinnegan. This chakra mode, however, is the byproduct of such compatibility. Even if the two chakras are compatible, the end result may be different and might result in a different kind of power, let alone if that power itself will manifest, or if the user has enough chakra and life force to contain that power. So basically, it is impossible for almost anyone other than you to use that chakra mode unless they cheat away and use a Tenseigan. Sasuke sighed in defeat. Lastly, does this Ashura chakra mode of yours is capable of stacking with your other modes? Naruto simply grinned in confidence. Sasuke then simply closed his eyes. If this Ashura chakra mode, a power-up created by melding Naruto and the first Hokage's potent chakras, with both of which being already Biju levels in their own right, then he can't just imagine how powerful Naruto would be if the blonde shinobi ever stack it even with, at the very least, his already formidable sage mode. However, more than anything, the Uchiha can't believe that someone like Naruto, a certified school dropout, can make a very cohesive, technical explanation just like what he just heard right now. However, part of him doesn't even want to know what kind of nightmarish training he has gone through for him to be able to dish out such information right off the bat. If Naruto was able to explain something like this, then it really was an S-rank training mission that can only be completed by no one except Naruto himself. I guess that's it for now. Sasuke then dispelled his perfect Susanoo, then landed on his feet. During our days in the academy, you're always trying to keep up with me. During the war, you have shown your growth and are able to surpass me. And this time, I'm the one having a hard time keeping up with you. Well, I guess I just matured quite a bit. Ahahaha. Naruto said, scratching the back of his head as he dispelled his Ashura chakra mode. The two of them then began walking towards each other. I actually still have plenty of other tricks on my sleeve. But that's enough for now. I don't want to reveal all my new abilities since the others are also watching. We might be at peace right now, but this era still is a blank period. The current peace that we have was still very fragile, and one wrong move could incite conflict once again. And with the other Otsutsukis possibly lurking somewhere, it would be best to keep getting stronger and prepare for whatever future might hold. Sasuke muttered while walking towards Naruto as well. Yeah, we will keep getting stronger so we can protect those who are dear to us. We already have lost a lot. I don't want to keep losing anyone anymore. Naruto said while looking towards the moon of the Genesis dimension. the two of them now standing just a few meters away from each other. The 5 cages, Sakura and Hinata then also approached the two powerful shinobi. Hinata immediately ran towards Naruto's right side and lightly hugged him, while Sakura also approached Sasuke with a smile, with the Uchiha returning the gesture with a small one. That ending was rather, well, anticlimactic, Kakashi said with a wry smile. This is for the better. We don't want the two of them to get hurt just because of a mere spar. Gaara followed a response. But still, with the two of you with such powers being official shinobi of the Hidden Leaf, there is definitely an imbalance of power between the nations right now, Raikage said with bitterness in his words. And that itself was the reason why the daimyos were taking action right now. Mei Terumi ushered in, earning the attention of the 4 younger shinobi that was together with them. The daimyos of the elemental nations are taking action. What do you mean? Sakura asked on behalf of Naruto, Hinata, and Sasuke, with the former two having confused expressions while Sasuke narrowed his eyes. Hokage, how come the shinobi of your village still wasn't familiar with the latest law that was announced for implementation by the daimyos during our last closed-door meeting with them? Unoki lightly yelled towards Kakashi. Well, Naruto and Sasuke still weren't in the village yet by then. Kakashi replied, his expression now serious. If I will announce such absurd law, then it would be best to announce it to clan heads of the village with both these two in attendance. After all, these two will definitely be the most affected shinobi once that law was fully implemented. And what is that law, Kakashi? Sasuke said with a glare. Naruto also found himself looking towards Kakashi with a much serious expression. 2 days from now, Kakashi replied. I already have the Hokage office staff to contact all the clan heads and their prospective successors for a meeting on that schedule. And I will announce this new law by then. Why do I have this feeling that this is indeed a very troublesome situation? Naruto said as he crossed his arm in front of his chest. It is, in all sense, very troublesome. Kakashi retorted. But, before anything else, I tried my best to reason out why that law shouldn't be implemented, or at the very least, be revised in favor of the shinobi who will not be in favor with it. But it seemed like, the daimyos have some other plans. Naruto and Sasuke then looked towards each other. This definitely has something to do with us. Their thoughts are conveyed to each other with just eye contact. Very well. Then you're on your own now, Hokage. Raikage then said seriously. The backlash from the 4 other hidden village due to the implementation of that law was not that good. But it has to be done. We might have achieved peace right now, but the daimyos are aiming for another kind of war. So prepare yourselves. It would be better to return to our home dimension so that we can depart from Konoha right after. Our villages are still dealing with that law. And we don't want to get caught up into possible trouble once Konoha announces and starts implementing that law in the next few days. Unoki said as he began levitating. Sasuke then cast his Rinnegan space-time portal. The Mizukage, Tsuchikage, and Raikage entered immediately. Gaara then approached Naruto and placed a hand on his right shoulder. Once you have heard the new law and come to terms with it, I would like to have a personal talk with you in Suna. There is someone from my village who desperately needs to talk to you. Gaara said in a serious tone. And it would be for the better if you would take Lady Hinata with you, as your fiancé. Naruto and Hinata then gave a confused expressions towards Gaara. As the cage bowed and entered the portal, Naruto and Hinata looked towards each other and tightly held each other's hands. Smells like another trouble for you, huh? Hinata said with a small smile. Yeah, one after another. Naruto just sighed. But for now, let's enjoy our time together. I have a feeling that the day after tomorrow is gonna be a long day. The lone Uzumaki and the Hyuga princess entered the portal, then followed by Sasuke and Sakura. I really have a bad feeling about this law, Sasuke muttered. Don't worry too much about it, Sakura replied with a reassuring smile. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side. Sasuke then gave Sakura a small smile as the portal disappeared from the side of the Genesis Dimensio. The cages, together with their escorts, were now preparing to depart from Konoha with Kakashi, Naruto, and Shikamaru bidding them a formal farewell. Till next time then, Raikage said to Kakashi, then shifted his attention to Naruto. Next time, I would like to test my speed against you. Both you using the Ninetales chakra and your father using the Hiraishin were the only ones who surpassed my speed. But that doesn't mean I'll take that loss. I am much faster now than ever before. If that's the case then, what's stopping me to combine Hiraishin and Kurama's chakra mode to outspeed you once again, if ever you're still faster than me on my current base speed, Raikage old man? Naruto replied with a mischievous grin. Hey, learning to bark now, aren't we? Raikage replied with a smirk. Give my regards to Octopops, Naruto muttered. Raikage and Darui then nodded. Better be careful, kid. Since you already have all the tailed beasts in you, you'll be the sole target of those other hidden organizations intending to use the Biju's powers and stir chaos once again. Unoki said to Naruto. We know that, Naruto replied with a small smile. But that's for the better. That way, it is an open book that I'm their target right now. No one else will get involved. And if they ever try to use those who are close to me just to get through me, then I'll make sure that they'll regret it. That's the thing. Mei Terumi added. You can overpower those organizations easily as you are right now. But that doesn't mean that they cannot use your own power against you. They can easily set you up by forcing you into a situation where you have no choice but to use the Biju powers, and with information manipulation, make the world think that you're a threat against the current peace that we have. Point taken. Thanks, Mizukage-sama, Naruto said with a respectful smile. But that also itself is the reason why I trained hard this past year and so. I need to be able to fight as a proper shinobi without relying too much on the Biju powers. Unless we're fighting beings on absurd levels like the Otsutsukis, I'll do my best not to use the Biju powers, or that will beat the reason why I am currently protecting them. I don't want to use their powers as tools as much as possible. The Mizukage and the Tsuchikage smiled after seeing Naruto's resolute expression regarding the matter. After all, they have seen it during the previous spar against Uchiha Sasuke. Naruto's fundamentals have grown, to the point that his arsenal alone will earn him a flea in sight warrant like that of his father if ever a war against the hidden villages ever happens to break out again. But no, not this time. They weren't fools to try waging war against Konoha right now with Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke around. However, much to Shikamaru's surprise, none of the cages were still mentioning anything about the law intended to be implemented by the daimyos. He's merely listening to the pleasantries between Naruto and the cages, intending to only interrupt if ever the said still confidential law was opened up before Kakashi officially announced it to the clan heads of the Hidden Leaf. But it seems like they don't intend to say anything for now. Naruto. We'll be on our way now, Gaara said with a kind smile. Naruto nodded with his usual grin. Remember what I told you last time? I'll be looking forward to your visit to Suna. Yeah, I promise, Naruto replied with a hint of seriousness. The other cages, together with their shinobi aides, including Kakashi and Shikamaru, looked towards Gaara after hearing the cage's words. Some were painted with a serious expression, some wary, some in confusion. The cage then walked away, with Kankuro lightly bowing to Konoha's entourage. The other cages followed suit, as they used their speed to begin jumping into the nearest tree branches. What are you talking about with the cage? Kakashi asked Naruto. Does the two of you have an agreement without consulting us first? Shikamaru also asked. None. Gaara simply said that he wanted me to visit Suna, together with Hinata. Naruto grinned. I believe it is just a friend visiting a friend. If it is some political issue or sort, I bet he'd rather talk to you two than me. And if it happens that our talk ever leaned to the political side, I'll immediately withdraw from that talk. Good, if that's really the case. Kakashi sighed. Is it concerning this new confidential law that is intended to be implemented by the daimyos, but not yet officially being implemented in Konoha? Naruto asked, his expression serious. Kakashi and Shikamaru didn't reply. After all, only the two of them among all of Konoha currently knew of the said law. And while the two already have discussed how they should deal with the new law, it would be better for them to proceed as planned without telling Naruto and Sasuke about it yet. Scene change. I'm home. Naruto opened the door of his apartment. This is the very same apartment that he used to live in since his childhood. Even after everything that he's been through, this place has still remained the same, a place that always welcomed him where he can rest his tired self, mind, and soul. However, ever since the moon incident, things have been different for him, in a more positive note. That's why now, more than ever, he's looking forward to something special each time he opened that same door since then. Welcome home, Naruto-kun. He was greeted by a cheerful yet soft voice. Hello, Hinata. Sorry I got held back a bit. Naruto greeted as he removed his sandals and hung his sage cloak on the hanger hook behind the door. It's fine. I'm almost done cooking dinner. I prepared some of your favorite dishes, not ramen though. Hinata replied as he smiled at her fiancé. Naruto lightly blushed as he looked towards the girl in front of her. He knew she was a very beautiful person, not just in appearance. And ever since the moon mission up to the day before he departed for his S-rank training mission, he just realized how lucky of a guy he is because he was deeply loved by someone like her. She was, after all, the Byakugan princess from the prestigious Hyuga clan. Yet she chose to love someone like him ever since their childhood days. Back then, his infatuation was with Sakura. But as they mature, and seeing how Sakura was truly in love with Sasuke, and despite the so-called confession from her pink-head Kunoichi teammate before the war, that was when he realized that Sakura will never like him back as a person of opposite, as a man. That was also when he realized that his feelings for him were not love. It was just him trying to compete with Sasuke in every way possible, and that included Sakura's affection. After admitting their love for each other during the moon incident, Naruto and Hinata became near inseparable. Most of the time, when not on missions, the two were often seen together, enjoying their time with each other to the fullest. Just like right now, as if both of them have gotten accustomed to, Hinata was cooking dinner for the both of them in Naruto's apartment. She's wearing her usual casual attire topped with an apron, her hair tied in low ponytail while doing her kitchen duties. Hinata stood in front of Naruto after the blonde shinobi removed his pair of sandals. The two of them smiled at each other, then hugged each other tightly. I missed you so much, Hinata. Naruto whispered to her ears while gently hugging the girl. I also missed you, Naruto-kun. Hinata replied as she buried her face in Naruto's chest, as small hint of tears were forming in both her eyes. I'm sorry that I've left you behind for so long, Naruto said, still not letting go while stroking the back of Hinata's head with his right hand. I almost lost you against Tonari. That's why I need to get much stronger so I can protect you properly next time. That's the least I can do for you after loving someone as dense as me for years without noticing your feelings. You don't have to say that. Like you have said, I have already waited for you for years. And I'm willing to wait for you no matter what. Hinata replied as she looked up at her lover. Even right now, I still can't believe that I can be able to hug you like this. I am no longer just standing from a distance, watching your back. I can now stand and stay by your side, that's why I'll never, ever let go of you, no matter what. The two tightened their hug, enjoying the warmth of each other, the warmth that they never felt for the past year and so. The two then let go, once again smiled at each other, then proceed to the kitchen with Naruto sitting on the dining table while Hinata served her newly cooked dishes. The lone Uzumaki and the Hyuga heiress then spend their time together that dinner, with Hinata telling stories that happened to Konoha during Naruto's absence, while Naruto told Hinata some parts of his gruesome training experience with the toads of Mt. Myokobu. After dinner, Naruto took Hinata back to the Hyuga manor, then the two bid farewell to each other for the meantime. Scene change. Hokage Tower, conference room. The conference hall was now filled with the major clan heads and their prospective successors. The Akamaiki, Inuzuka, Aburame, Yamanaka, and such were now sitting on a huge, circular table. Indeed, this group of clan heads is now the new members composing the new Konoha Council. The former Konoha Council consisting of the elders of the village has been disbanded by Tsunade after the war before handing the Hokage seat to Kakashi, since they were involved in conspiracies that negatively affect Konoha's political side in favor of their own personal gains with the deceased former candidate for the Hokage position, Danzo Shimura. Kakashi then established a voting system that allowed the clan members to vote for the prospective members of the council by their choice, and such, the creation of the new Konoha Council. A few minutes before the council meeting started, the last clan head expected to arrive came on time. Hiyashi Hyuga, together with Hanabi Hyuga, the clan's prospective clan head in the future, finally sat on his designated seat. And after pleasantries, entered the current Hokage, Hitaki Kakashi, followed by Shikamaru Nara, his right-hand person, administrative advisor, and also the current head of the Nara clan. Following them were Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Most clan heads greeted Naruto casually while Hiyashi Hyuga simply gave him a small smile and a nod. Not much to be said, as Hiyashi already approved the relationship of her elder daughter with the hero of the shinobi world. Sasuke was also greeted, but not as lively as their greetings with Naruto, since most of them were still somewhat wary of the Uchiha because of the things he had done before the Fourth War. On the other hand, Naruto ni Hanabi lightly tackled Naruto from behind and linked her left arm to Naruto's right arm. How was it? Oni-sama's cooking. She improved a lot, doesn't she? Yeah, she's a great cook now. I believe you also have a part of why she got this good at cooking, right? Naruto replied, but slightly nervous. Well, he can't even remember when did Hanabi became this close to him. But he can't complain back. She's Hinata's little sister. So he was also treating her also like a sister he never had. That was back then before he left for his S-rank training. But now, Hanabi was more or less 16 years old. She had quite a growth spurt, as she grew from a 14-year-old adolescent girl that they saved during the Moon mission, to a very beautiful girl with physical characteristics similar to Hinata during the Fourth War. In fact, what was making him nervous right now was that he can now feel the Hyuga heiress bosom sandwiching his right arm. Not as big as of Hinata's back then, but still proportionate to her height and age. Crap. Did I just remember the size of Hinata's brie? Naruto shook his head comically in realization. More importantly, he looked nervously towards Hiyashi, knowing that his lover's father would get angry at this gesture of Hanabi, but Hiyashi simply ignored it as he was casually talking with Kakashi, taking the opportunity before the council meeting commenced. After a few more minutes, Kakashi then officially announced the start of the council meeting. After a few discussions regarding the internal affairs of Konoha between the clan heads, Shikamaru then began talking seriously. Everyone. The main reason why we conduct this council meeting was because the daimyos of the 5 great nations have declared a new law for implementation. The other hidden villages already have begun implementing it. However, Konoha opted to delay it to prepare possible workarounds so as it may greatly affect our political system as a whole. Shikamaru said in a neutral tone befitting a Hokage advisor. Sasuke, Naruto, and all the clan heads in attendance focused their attention on Shikamaru, who was currently standing right behind Kakashi's seat. Before we declare the law, let us give a brief background for the overview of why the daimyos decided to create such law. Kakashi then spoke. Even during the warring periods, the time before the concept of hidden village was established, and death can easily be considered as natural as breathing, the population of this world was so small and very unstable due to constant battles between shinobi clans. In fact, due to battles between clans, a shinobi reaching 30 years of age was already considered that of an old person. And since the establishment of the hidden villages, creating powerful alliances between clans that decided to live within those hidden villages, while the battles have been lessened, the succeeding battles have now involved more shinobi due to the missions being implemented by their respective cages. Thus, resulting in more deaths. As we all know, The first to third Shinobi World Wars happened after the creation of the hidden villages. And due to such large-scale wars, other minor and smaller villages became involved, creating much greater strife than during the warring periods that created further chaos, leading to the creation of organizations such as the Akatsuki and such, which leads to the Fourth Great Shinobi World War. And due to this, the economic status of the shinobi world was on a great decline. Shikamaru continued from where Kakashi left off. The continued battles, wars, and deaths greatly affected the decrease of population of the world. In fact, the population of the world right now is much lesser than during the warring period, with the worst male-to-female difference in history, in 1:5 ratio, respectively, due to the ones that were involved and those who died during the previous war were mostly male shinobi. And due to the population itself being the main pillar of the economic growth and to save the shinobi nations from great decline, the law to assist and stabilize the world's population has been created unanimously by the 5 great nations for implementation. 5 Great Shinobi Nation Feudal Act. In order to solve the massive decline in the population of the 5 great nations, all the shinobi under the hidden villages must marry at least 2, but not more than 8 women. The daimyos will also have the authority to arrange marriages for outstanding or acknowledged shinobi as to reward them for their respective acts and further stabilize the political state of the nation. The announcement earned various reactions from the clan heads. A lot of things immediately run through their minds, but most of them looked toward Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke simply closed his eyes due to the attention while Naruto narrowed his eyes. So that's it, huh? Naruto gripped his knuckles. So, the daimyo's intent was to really arrange prominent shinobi to political marriages from someone from other villages or other nations. If I'm going to read between the lines, I can easily summarize these, Sasuke muttered as he opened his eyes. First, they intend to distribute the powers of the powerful clans to other nations and villages. Second, they intend to use arranged marriages as part of the negotiation treaty between nations and villages similar to how it used to be with the Bijus back then during the first Hokage's time. Third, they intend to take control of those they deemed as notable shinobi through those arranged marriages. I can't accept that. Naruto looked towards Kakashi and Shikamaru, his mind thinking of Hinata. She loved him since their childhood despite being a good-for-nothing prankster. She didn't give up on him and continued to believe in him. She supported him in silence. And now that he already knew how much Hinata loved him, he can't just let some random girl to suddenly appear between them so that Konoha can comply with this stupid new law. But as of now, we don't have a choice, Naruto. Kakashi replied. All the hidden villages are merely military institutions being run by the daimyos who have sovereignty over their respective domains. The villages, economy and budget greatly depend on them. If we will not comply with their law, it will be possible that they will cut down or even stop the provisions that they were providing for the village. And here I thought that I heard you guys before that you delayed the implementation of this law to think of some workarounds against this law. Naruto rebutted. Calm down, Naruto. Shikamaru sighed. He never thought that Naruto will be the one that has to deal with this kind of discussion. Yes, Konoha will comply, but that doesn't mean we will not use the loophole of that law on our own advantage. Loophole. Inuzuka Kiba, Naruto's classmate and the prospective future clan leader of the Inuzuka clan, asked in curiosity. Everyone, except Kakashi who had his arms crossed and eyes closed, focused their attention on Shikamaru. The daimyo's law pointed out that they have the authority to arrange marriages for outstanding or acknowledged shinobi. But in the first clause, the law mentioned that all the shinobi under the hidden villages must marry at least 2, but not more than 8 women. In other words, the term, not more than 8 women, is the absolute limit to the number of women a male shinobi can marry. That means the daimyos cannot arrange a marriage to a shinobi who already have 8 wives. So if a shinobi don't want to have unknown other women from other villages and nation to be married to him, all that the shinobi have to do is to find and marry 8 wives whom they can, at the very least, trust. That way, the daimyos can't use marriage as a form of a hidden treaty between other political entities and also, Avoid being controlled by the same daimyos to have you do their bidding for them in the pretense of protecting your family. The clan heads gave the same reaction as before when the law was declared earlier. While what Shikamaru have just said was indeed a better alternative, it still won't change the fact that they will have no choice but to have more than one partner with whom they will have to spend their life with. While this may remedy the dwindling population, what if the wives they chose don't want to share them with the other women? I still don't like it. Naruto once again spoke. If I need to go and talk to the daimyos right now to revoke this stupid law, then I'll go there right here and now. And what? Use force trying to change their minds? Shikamaru rebutted. You know I'm not that kind of person, Shikamaru. Naruto replied. But I'll have to if I have no choice. Then what? Kakashi replied this time. Naruto, you are the hero of the shinobi world. Your dream is to become the Hokage, right? Then your dream is already right in front of you. And who do you think were the ones who have the authority to appoint the next Hokage? It was the daimyos themselves. Quote. Naruto narrowed his eyes in realization. He felt like he was being cornered for some reason. Naruto. Hiyashi Hyuga, this time, interrupted. Hearing you react like this against this law made me really, really glad. This simply shows how much you value your relationship with Hinata. Now I know more than ever that you will never, ever hurt my daughter's feelings. But remember, you are a shinobi. You are plenty powerful as you are right now. If you ever do what you intend to do right now and went directly to the daimyos regarding this law, regardless of how you approach them, it can easily be assumed that you are openly disobeying them. And despite being the hero of the shinobi world, they can easily declare you as a criminal for attempting to do something against them. Then what should I do? The blonde lowered his head, gritting his teeth. What's so wrong with having multiple wives? Sasuke spoke casually, surprising everyone. Sasuke, what did you just say? What about Sakura? Naruto straightened his stance, lightly glaring towards Sasuke. Don't be too sentimental, Naruto. Sasuke returned the light glare. I am the last of my clan. And I am very thankful that Sakura did not give up on me, just like you, despite the crimes that I had committed back then. So on this matter, I suggest that while Konoha does its best to take advantage of the loophole of that law, we will also need to add another clause in conjunction with its implementation. A clause that will declare that the first wife must have the final approval if the shinobi whom they were married with will take another woman as another wife. If they cannot come into an agreement, the marriage between that new woman and the shinobi must be cancelled or called off. Another clause can also be added that the number of wives can also depend on the current rank of the shinobi. That way, we can possibly lessen the possible family problems between the wives and also have the shinobi with appropriate rank and level of income support a much larger family due to them having multiple wives. So you will have Sakura decide if she'll approve of another woman to be your wife, Naruto asked in a serious tone. And that should be the same for you and Hinata, Sasuke replied. Trust is the true symbol of love. If you truly love Hinata, then you must trust her with this. You're saying as if they will readily accept this stupid law as it is. Sakura will. Because I trust her judgment. The Uchiha said. How about you? Naruto simply clenched his fist. This law still feels so wrong. There is no way that he'll let another random girl to suddenly barge into his life, together with Hinata. There's just no way. Kakashi then spoke. Alright, I know this will be quite an adjustment for all of you. But let me also remind you that more than our personal feelings and traditions, we need to adapt to the current circumstances of our world. Just imagine the current ratio between man and woman right now in our world. A husband and wife that can produce 2 children will simply just even out the population for that specific marriage for the next generation. However, what if that husband and wife only had 1 child? Or worst, wasn't able to produce a child? If a husband has at least 2 wives and was able to have a child in the first wife and 3 on the second wife, the union between 3 individuals created 4 offspring. It is basically a +1, thus increasing the potential population index for the next generation. Luckily, We have more female than male, so it won't be that much troublesome for us. If it is the other way around, with more guys than girls, I believe things would get even more chaotic. Marriage is a commitment between a man and a woman. It is what we believed is right. Of course, I also believed that it was, and will always be right based on the morals we've built upon. However, the current situation of our world requires us to change what we believed is right. And this is in order to ensure that we'll have a proper next generation that we can leave behind. That's why we have no choice but to accept the law. However, at the very least, we should be able to change and circumvent that law that would not affect the foundation of our morals that much. Kakashi finished his statement, leaving most of the clan heads thinking. Indeed, this is the start of a new era. The 5 major hidden villages were already on good terms. Akatsuki was no more. There might be some smaller hidden organizations aiming to disrupt the current peace, but they were nowhere near the threat that the Akatsuki had posed. Then I have a suggestion. Hiyashi Hyuga broke the silence. As the members of this council, we have already heard the law, and intend to include additional terms and provisions so as to not greatly affect our code of ethics and maintain the equality between men and women. In relation to this, I would suggest that once the law has been finalized, that the full provisions included within this law won't become public knowledge outside of Konoha. This is to protect the village, and more so for Uchiha Sasuke and Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto looked towards the Hyuga head. Hiyashi gave a small smile to Naruto. After all, we already knew that the other villages have already been implementing this law. And they were only waiting for Konoha's implementation so that they can begin approaching the village, with those from higher nobility from other villages and nations aiming to arrange a political marriage between their daughters with some of us, notably Naruto and Sasuke. And if they succeed, they will use this to show their power against another, and will definitely stir misunderstandings and at worst, rift the villages apart again. While Uchiha Sasuke's earlier suggestions might limit their advances, those nobles might use the power of the daimyos and disregard Konoha's additional law provisions. That's why I suggest that let's keep the information of our compliance with that law within those who are in this room, apply Uchiha Sasuke's suggestions, then have our most prominent shinobi marry the girls whom they can trust as soon as possible, so our shinobi won't be targeted by political marriages by those nobles and daimyos from other villages. But what's stopping them from simply changing the law without notice, making the wives limit to 15 or even 20, just to accommodate their stupid plans? Naruto inquired to the Hiyashi. They won't, Kakashi answered. The law has been discussed with us Kagesaround and was completed with a blood seal between the daimyos. The blood seal allows the law to become irrevocable for the next 50 years. The Kages, while we can't do anything against the law, made sure that the blood seal must be applied for that law's implementation so that the daimyos cannot abuse their authority for that specific law. So they can't simply change that law based on their own whim. I see. So this is the best possible option we have right now, huh? Naruto sighed as if giving up discussing the topic. But I still won't accept any other woman other than Hinata, as much as possible. Then you'll be targeted by the nobles for an arranged marriage, Choji Akamaiki said with a smirk, playfully taunting his classmate. Then I'll think about it when that time comes, Naruto replied, still serious. Sorry, but I'll leave for now. I'll have to think about this before discussing it with Hinata. The blonde sage then lightly bowed to the members of the council, then made his way to the exit. Would you look at that, Yamanaka Ino, the current clan head of the Yamanakas, with Sai standing behind her as her consort. That dense blockhead really have fallen heads over heels with Hinata, huh? Well, he's been looking for someone whom he could connect to since his childhood. Sure, Sasuke was now around. But even without Sasuke, Hinata was always supporting him from distance. That's why after he understood all of Hinata's feelings and what she has been through for his sake, I bet he promised himself that he'll do everything that he can to not make Hinata sad. That's just how Naruto is since then. Sai said, enough for the entire council to hear. It seems like, even with this law's implementation, we can still be rest assured that Onisama will be truly happy with Naruto ni. Hanabi said with a smile towards his father after seeing how adamant Naruto was for Hinata's sake. Hiashi simply nodded with a smile in return. Given our current circumstances, how about you, Hanabi? Do you want to become Naruto's wife as well? Hiashi asked in a lighter tone. I'll rest assured that both of you will be in good hands if it's Naruto. Wah! Hanabi immediately turned into tomato. What are you talking about, Otu-sama? Everyone remaining on the conference room laughed lightheartedly. That idiot. Sasuke then began walking towards the exit with a small smirk, thinking of Naruto's reaction. Scene change. Suna. Cage Tower. Gaara was now walking towards a specific room after completing mountains of paperwork on his table that were accumulated during those few days he spent at Konoha. Behind him was Kankuro, acting as his trusted right-hand person. As he opened the door, the two of them were greeted by Tamari, and a small smile from a certain girl. So, what happened to your Konoha visit? Tamari asked immediately to her younger brother. Well, as the earlier intel had said, Naruto has finally returned, Gaara replied, omitting the Otsutsukis part that Sasuke have informed them about. And he's much, much stronger now. You just want some news about Shikamaru, right? Kankuro said, trying to annoy his sister. He was met with a comical glare from the wind jutsu user. Does Naruto have finally returned? The girl who was with Tamari muttered, longing and anticipation filling her expression. The girl in question was around the same age as of Naruto. She has long, waist-length red hair, purple-colored eyes, and visible fair skin. She wore a robe in a combination of pink and purple. Its design can easily be discerned as that of a distinguished royalty from outside of Suna. Yes, while he is now much stronger, he's still the same person as you have known him. Gaara responded to the girl. Thanks. I really wanted to see him right now, the girl said with a sad smile while looking down to the ground. All of us here know that you can't, right now, considering your unique circumstances. After all, only the three of us here know who you really are. Kankuro said while leaning on one of the walls of the room, ensuring that no one was eavesdropping on their conversation. The girl didn't respond. However, Gaara already had a personal arrangement with that guy. So he'll be the one who will come over to Suna. Really? The girl's expression shone as if immediately erasing the sad expression she just had. Will Naruto really come here? Yes. He'll definitely come. Gaara nodded. That's why you need to prepare yourself, the queen from the lost city of the Wind Country. Gaara then paused, looking towards the girl, a girl who ended up traveling to this timeline from 20 years of the past. Queen Sarah of Roran. Sarah opened her eyes, and traces of a lone tear ran down her cheeks. She then sat on her bed, then looked outside through the window. It was nighttime. The sky was clear, displaying the twinkling stars that made her feel more melancholic. She's still in the same room where she spent time together with Tamari. She's like a prisoner under house arrest. The cage ordered her to stay in that room to ensure her safety. After all, her circumstances were very, very unique. She is a person from the past. Her current 19-year-old self shouldn't exist in this era. Naruto, she muttered with longing and sadness. Right after she attempted to hug Naruto as the blonde shinobi was about to disappear, she found herself lying on one of the ruins of Roran's former royal castle. She was, at first, surprised that her beloved city was now in ruins, making her think that because of her sudden disappearance from the past led her city into such a state in the future. She was able to get a new set of her usual, red-colored royal robe within the ruined royal palace, replacing her current tattered clothing that she had during the fight against Mukade. It also made her wonder how come that the royal palace where she got her new royal robes were not damaged by whatever reason that made the city look like this. She needed to look for answers. And she only had herself and the chakra blade that Naruto left behind in her custody right now. So she began wandering around the city. After a few hours of walking around the ruined city, As if looking for some information regarding her current situation, she noticed two shinobi approaching her. One blonde kunoichi with huge fan-like weapon in front of her, and one shinobi with a weird facial painting pattern behind her. Scene change. 2 weeks ago, we immediately went to the ruins of Roran right after our intelligence unit sensed some kind of strange chakra movement being detected in that ruined city, Tamari said as she, together with Konkuro and Gaara, were standing in one of the verandas of the Cage Tower. After all, it was more of a sealed city than a ruined city due to it containing the mysterious Ryumyuku chakra ley line. That's why the Wind Country protected it through the hidden village of the sand from anyone who will attempt to do something on those ruins since after the Third Shinobi War. And as we trace that strange chakra movement given by our intel, we found her walking around the ruined city, with her movements having visible familiarity with the city's structure despite its ruined state, Konkuro added. Feeling that she wasn't some sort of bandit, Tamari and I allowed our presence to be felt as we approach her. She's visibly wary of us, of course. We tried to approach her, but she pointed out her chakra blade against us. Tamari muttered while remembering the incident. Despite her clumsy, un-shinobi-like stance, her face was brimming with determination back then. It was then that we noticed the familiar insignia from the chakra blade that she was currently holding. Konoha. Gaara said in neutral expression. Yes. Konoha's insignia. Konkuro said, with traces of Naruto's chakra on it. So I communicated with her as to let her guard down, thinking that she might be someone from or affiliated with Konoha. I can't believe how she responded back then. Tamari said with a smile of admiration. She said, I am an acquaintance of the Hidden Leaf Village. I need to meet someone from that village. So I need you to take me to your cage. If you won't do as I say, then I respectfully request to you two to leave me alone. I asked her, how can you be so sure that we're not some bad guys aiming against you? We might be members of some hidden organizations who might do something nasty against you. And all she replied was, you guys approached me properly. No bandits would ever do that. You also have a forehead protector from the hidden village of the sand, so most likely that the two of you were sent here by the cage to investigate something, one way or another. And besides, you're a beautiful woman. I believe that someone like you, with such composure, will never do anything wrong against me. She is a very beautiful, courageous, and observant woman, Konkuro said, vocal of his first impression of the former queen. I see. That's the reason why you immediately took her to me. Gaara said. Scene change. I'm glad that the hidden village of the sand was far more welcoming now than it used to be during our time. Even their cage right now seems like a gentle person. Sarah muttered to herself. During that time Tamari and Konkuro brought her to the cage for the first time, she immediately said that everything that she was about to tell was very confidential information and she swore that she will only tell nothing but the truth. With only the 3 Suna siblings currently on the room, Sarah told them of her circumstances, that she was someone from the past, how the city of Roran was from the past, how Mukade controlled the city and attempted to take advantage of her so he can use the Ryumyuku for his own bidding, until a group of shinobi from Konoha and a pair of shinobi from the same village, albeit from the future, came to help her and free the enslaved citizens of Roran from Mukade. The 3 Suna siblings intently listened to her story. But what the trio noticed was how Queen Sarah gets animated, emotional, and affectionate each time the name, Naruto, was ever mentioned. They did inform her beforehand that Suna was now an allied village with Konoha so she can be rest assured with them even for a little, but didn't inform her yet by that time that they were close acquaintances with Naruto himself. And the way she described Naruto, how he made her into a better person, and how he fought recklessly just for the sake of protecting her, together with the chakra blade that she had right now, were more than enough for them to believe the validity of her stories, much to the queen's surprise. The only wonder the Suna siblings had, was that based on Sarah's description of Naruto, the blonde shinobi took that said mission more or less 4 years ago, sometime before Pain attacked Konoha. This made them wonder how come Sarah was only able to time traveled and appeared right now, and not around the same time when Naruto and his team completed their mission. Sarah explained that it was possibly because of Ryumyuku's instability back then. She told them that Mukade, despite being influenced near simultaneously by the Ryumyuku with Naruto and Yamato, arrived 6 years earlier in the past than Naruto, with Yamato being delayed for nearly another 24 hours after Naruto's appearance from the same timeline. When she made contact with Naruto before he disappeared, the Ryumyuku might have acted up before being sealed, sending her also, but into a much further, future timeline from the then Naruto's timeline. This actually made her wonder, if she hugged Naruto much earlier and not during the last second before he disappeared, she might have arrived in a much earlier time period than now. Well, not that it matters much, since she was currently 19-year-old girl who fell in love with a 16-year-old guy. With her being transported 4 years further from Naruto's, they were now of the same age. This realization somewhat made her so happy. However, Sarah wondered why the Suna siblings readily accepted and believed her absurd time travel story. Gaara reasoned that due to the power of Ryumyuku, such an event might actually be possible. However, it was when Temari mentioned that they were actually close acquaintances with Naruto, matching Kankuro's huge grin and Gaara's small smile, that made Sarah blush so hard that enough to make a tomato jealous. Gaara further added that he considered Naruto as a very close friend, then told her about his own story with the blonde Jinchuriki. After hearing the Kage's story on how Naruto also changed him, I can't help but fall in love with him more, Sarah said as she tightly clasped both her hands in front of her chest. Not only the Kage, but he also helped to change this world for the better. As she stayed in the Kage's tower for the past 2 weeks, Temari somewhat became rather close to her. As if seeing her somewhat in pain due to the current state of her city, Temari showed her some records that Roran became a battlefield and was destroyed during the Third Shinobi World War. However, none of the Roran citizens died during the war because Suna accepted them as immigrants from the said city. A few years later that it was only revealed by the Roran citizens, though still highly classified, that the last queen of Roran vanished while sealing the Ryumyuku chakra ley line, protecting it from being used again since only those of royal blood native from Roran can activate the ley line before being used for whatever purpose. And for the Ryumyuku not to be targeted again like what Mukade did, and seeing that a major battle will involve Roran during the then Shinobi World War, the remaining citizens of Roran mutually decided to migrate to the Sand Village and let the city of Roran be destroyed by the ensuing battle to camouflage the ley line from other evil intents. Sarah smiled to herself. She might have not become a good queen, but she left something to Roran, and the citizens abide by her will despite selfishly disappearing during those times that they needed her. All that they knew was that she disappeared trying to seal the Ryumyuku after saving them from Mukade's slavery, but they didn't know that she was sent to the future, on this current timeline. So she accepted that it would be better for her people not to know her circumstances, or things will definitely get complicated, in more ways than one. Then, Temari went ahead and told her stories of what happened to Naruto after he returned from Roran. He protected Konoha and fought against pain, fought against the powerful members Akatsuki on the Fourth Shinobi World War, fought even against the literal goddess of chakra, then a year later, saved the world from destruction due to the falling moon by defeating another powerful otherworldly enemy. While the stories made her reaffirm her feelings and further fall in love with him not because of his achievements, but because of him being the same as who he is back then, it was then that she learned that the Naruto she fell in love with now has a fiancé named Hinata Hyuga, a heiress candidate from one of the most prestigious clans of the Hidden Leaf. According to Temari, Hinata already loved Naruto way back during their childhood. It was only during the moon incident that Naruto realized this and accepted her feelings, thus becoming a couple. And this made her feel so sad. Her heart suddenly felt a pain that she never thought possible. Fate and destiny made them meet each other. She fell in love with him. They got separated by space and time, yet fate and destiny once again do their thing. However, the very person she's chasing right now, believing that she can now able to reach, has now become much further to her than ever before. It's not that she can't just accept it. It was 4 long years for him. And with his character, It will only be a matter of time before he found that special someone who really cares for him. But for her, it was only a mere 2 weeks since they last saw each other due to the events concerning Mukade. That's why it was painful for her. He's the only one she needs right now. He's the reason why she ended up on this timeline. She basically only had him due to her current circumstances. Thinking about him, being with him, and falling in love with him felt so right. But right now, it felt so wrong. But she can't just give up on it. Not until she was able to meet him again, even for one last time. That's why when the Cage Summit and the news about Naruto were about to return after his more than a year disappearance, she had Gaara promise to make her meet Naruto no matter what. Gaara felt sorry for her, but this is the least he can do. That's why Gaara made such arrangements with Naruto during the previous Cage Summit so he can visit Suna and have both him and Sarah meet again. Naruto. Sarah brought her clasped hands to her forehead as if praying that her feelings will reach the person of her affection, with a lone tear once again escaping her sad, longing eyes. Scene change. On the outskirts a few kilometers outside Konoha. I still don't like it, Naruto grumbled. Both of them were in their mission gear, with Naruto wearing the same attire that he had when he returned to Konoha a few days ago, with Hinata wearing the same mission gear she had during the moon incident. He was now currently lying down on the ground, his head on Hinata's lap. Hinata, on the other hand, was lightly brushing Naruto's hair with her right hand. The two of them were currently on their way to Suna and on a quick break, resting under a huge tree. Well, we can't do anything about it, Hinata said, trying to be reasonable with Naruto regarding the law. However, she can easily understand why Naruto felt like this. She had loved him for so long. And now that she's finally able to walk side by side with him, it just feels so wrong having another woman entering their lives as a couple duo the implementation of that feudal law, and the worst was that she must share Naruto with that woman in more ways than one. Those thoughts alone were painful enough for her. What if Naruto was forced to marry someone by the daimyos? What if Naruto was forced to marry someone who will use him as a mere trophy? What if someone tries to control Naruto using those arranged marriages? To most of the shinobi world, Uzumaki Naruto is a hero, a very powerful shinobi, and a future Hokage, yet only those who were close to him know what Naruto has been through that allowed him to make it up to this point. A lot of things were going on through her head. Indeed, the two of them don't like the new law. While Konoha did change some provisions within the law, both felt like they were being cheated in some form or another. Naruto wanted to protect Hinata's feelings. Hinata wanted to protect Naruto from being married to a woman who will possibly end up only using him for whatever selfish reasons. Hinata, do you want to leave Konoha behind, and live with just the two of us? Naruto muttered the one thing that Hinata never thought Naruto would say, leaving the village behind, just for her. Hinata's eyes widened, surprised of Naruto's words. No, you can't do that, Naruto-kun. Hinata said, her face painted with worry and anxiety. You can't just abandon the village. You're the hero of Konoha. You've already been through a lot for you to make it this far. You can't just discard your dream of becoming the Hokage when it's already right before you. Hinata, it is not the village's fault. So please don't think about leaving the village, and your friends, and abandoning your lifelong dream. You can't do that just because you don't like the law that the daimyos implemented. Hinata said, returning to her calm demeanor. I am honestly so happy that you're thinking this much about me, about my feelings, Naruto-kun. My heart is jumping with joy hearing how you need only me and no one else. Naruto then stood up, then sat behind Hinata, and hugged her from behind. Of course. I'm sorry, Hinata. You deserve a lot more. I honestly think, even right now, that I don't deserve someone like you. I, too, am thinking the same. Sometimes, I also am thinking if I really have the right to stay by your side. Don't say that. I'll get angry. Then don't think like that. I'll also feel sad. The two further snuggled to each other, with Hinata leaning on him, her head on his shoulder. Naruto then lightly rubbed his cheek with Hinata's as he closed his eyes. I don't want you to marry another woman. But given the current situation, we won't have much of a choice. Right now, the only hope I have for the current circumstances is for you not to be married to a woman who will only use you as some kind of mere price or due to better their status. And if you will end up marrying another woman, I hope it was someone who will also love you as who you are, and not what you are. Hinata said lovingly, hiding the pain within her just by muttering those words. Yeah, but I don't know if there will be another woman who will love me as who I am, not as what I am. You're the only one I know who loves me like this. Naruto said. Not that I intend to look for another one either. But if we won't find another girl, then you might be forced to marry someone for political reasons. Hinata rebutted, implying the worst-case scenario. Naruto gave a grumbling reaction. Let's think about it later. For now, let's head straight to Suna. It is rare for Gaara to invite me like that. As his friend, I just can't leave him hanging. Hi. To Kage-sama then, Hinata replied with a smile. As she attempted to stand from their current position. Change of mind. Let's stay like this for a few more minutes. Naruto tightened her hug from behind with a huge grin. Hinata cutely giggled as she once again leaned backward to her lover, enjoying their alone time together, as if trying to erase their anxiety under the shade of the big tree. Scene change. Well, you can't blame Naruto. This was his first time having such strong feelings for someone of the opposite. Sakura said while cooking dinner, with Sasuke sitting on the dining room. But what about you, Sasuke-kun? According to Ino, you readily accepted that law without much reaction during the council meeting. In fact, I heard you even added additional provisions to the law to lessen its possible negative impact. What do you expect? Don't even imagine me reacting like that idiot from time to time. Sasuke said to Sakura, you can't blame me for not opposing the law. Right now, I am just a mere pardoned criminal. I may be against the daimyo's law, but I am here right now thanks to Naruto. I know most of the villagers are still quite wary of me. That's why I want to rebuild relationships with others, one step at a time, in my own way. Sasuke-kun. Sakura gave a loving smile towards Sasuke. She never thought that he would ever return to Konoha. His crimes, his hatred for what happened to Itachi, his hate against the village due to what happened to his clan, she thought that she can never be together with him again. She, like everyone else, had already given up on him. But Naruto was able to reach him. He fulfilled his promise and made Sasuke return to the village. He might be leaving for dangerous, long-term missions concerning the Otsutsukis from time to time, but that was his own way of atoning for his sins. That's why simple moments like these were treasures for her. So, what will you gonna do now? You said that you're just a pardoned criminal, right? Surely, the political figures will use that against you as means to force you into an arranged marriage, right? Sakura carefully asked. They will definitely use your lineage to gain younger generation with Uchiha bloodline from your marriages, then use them for power, and it might incite chaos once again in the near future. I might not react like him, but that doesn't mean I am not thinking of such situations, Sasuke replied in a quite stern voice. For now, all that I need is a second wife to comply with the law. And after that, I'll think about something so that those nobles and daimyos won't approach or target me for an arranged marriage for a third wife and so. Sasuke said with a small smirk. A second wife. You already have a target second wife. Sakura sighed in defeat. So I really am not enough for you, Sasuke-kun. Idiot. Sasuke sighed this time. Like I have said, to comply with the law. If I have a choice, I will choose you over that other girl over and over. That girl. Sakura gave a thinking pose. Ah. You mean that girl? Yeah, right. I'll have to take Karen out of Orochimaru's laboratory and have her as my second wife. Sasuke said to Sakura, making the pink-head Kunoichi react with a comical expression. Wait a second, Sasuke-kun. Sakura yelled comically. You have yet to propose to me, but you already have a second wife in mind. Shanaru. Scene change. Kage-sama. An informant appeared right in front of Gaara's desk. Uzumaki Naruto-sama and Hyuga Hinata-sama of the Hidden Leaf Village have been already sighted and was about to enter our village. We are waiting for your orders. I see, Gaara said with a small smile. Let me welcome them personally. Thanks for the notice. The informant bowed before leaving the room. Gaara then walked towards the veranda of the Cage Tower, then looked towards the direction of the gate where Naruto and Hinata were about to enter. You might have grown powerful as a shinobi, my friend, Gaara muttered to himself. But with this situation, I want to see how much you have grown, as an individual, and as a person. A mild wind then began blowing, lightly shuffling his red hair. Then gradually, his physical form began dispersing into sand particles until his entire physical body became such, allowing the breeze to carry him toward his desired location. Scene change. As Naruto and Hinata entered Suna, the two were greeted by warm cheers and smiles from the Suna shinobi and citizens alike. Naruto awkwardly waved his right hand in return, while Hinata gave a shy smile. The two were welcomed by Temari and Kankuro as they walked towards the Cage Tower. The four prominent shinobi of their respective hidden villages then began talking to each other, with Naruto and Kankuro teasing Temari about her relationship with Shikamaru, while Hinata did her best so that Temari won't use her wind jutsus to blow the two away out of embarrassment. On their way near the Cage Tower, a pile of sand began forming into humanoid form. It was then revealed to be Gaara, personally welcoming his friend to his village. The two exchanged a friendly handshake, earning cheers from those who were watching them. It's been a while, Cage-sama. Naruto greeted with a huge grin. Hinata lightly bowed and gave the cage a small smile as well. Don't greet me like that. It's not very like you. Gaara replied to his blonde friend with a smile as well. It is a rare sight for the Cage and the hero of the shinobi world to exchange pleasantries out in the open. So the Suna citizens took advantage of watching such a rare occurrence until the group entered the Cage Tower. Instead of the Cage office, Naruto and Hinata sat in the guest room. Kankuro and Gaara kept them company, exchanging various information and topics casually without a trace of formal communication like it used to when there was an official meeting like the Cage Summit. It was indeed just a friend visiting and talking to a friend, spending time together. After a few good minutes of random conversation and having some light snack, the four shinobi went silent, as if mutually realizing that they must start talking about the reason why Gaara invited Naruto to visit. The Cage then nodded to Kankuro, and Kankuro then went ahead and knocked on the other door that connects the guest room to another room, implying that whoever was on the other side can now enter the room. Temari first entered the room, then gave the couple from Konoha an anxious smile. This made Naruto and Hinata wonder what was this all about. It was then that Naruto sensed another person who was just behind the door, waiting to enter the room. And much to Naruto's surprise, the person he sensed behind the door was someone he definitely knew, but at the same time, felt very foreign to him. But before the person entered the guest room, Naruto. Gaara then began speaking seriously. Do you still remember that one time that you, together with the rest of your team, chased a rogue ninja named Mukade to the ruins of the lost city of Roran? Well, yeah, Naruto replied. We chased down Mukade on the ruins of Roran, then a light suddenly appeared, consuming him, me, and Yamato Taiko. When the light subsided, Sakura and Sai found me and Yamato Taiko lying on the ground, unconscious, with not even a single trace of Mukade around. However, when I woke up, I can feel my entire body aching, as if I've just gone through some serious battles against a powerful opponent. Both I and Yamato Taiko felt like we can't remember anything that happened, as if someone sealed our memories or something, and up till now, every once in a while, those thoughts kept nagging me. As if my sealed memories were telling me that something very important happened back then. I see. Gaara closed his eyes. He then shifted his attention to the person behind the door. You may now enter. The person immediately entered the room before Gaara could even finish his statement. The former queen of Roran and the blonde shinobi's eyes finally met each other. Naruto, Sarah muttered, tears starting to form in the lid of both her eyes. Her face was now filled with unexplainable emotions, as if her feelings were now trying to burst her open now that the person of her affection was now right in front of her. Hinata observed the girl and her reaction right after she entered the room and the way she muttered Naruto's name with such gentle affection. It wasn't a mere affection that a woman can express without deep feelings hiding within it. She then looked towards Naruto, with Gaara, Kankuro and Temari doing the same. And what they saw also somewhat surprised them. Naruto was looking intently at the girl with a complicated expression on his face. They saw a bead of sweat roll down his face as if he was doing something very difficult even for someone like him. "We'll be waiting outside," Gaara said as he began walking towards the main door. Kankuro and Temari seemed intent to be left behind, but Gaara used some small amount of sand particles to lightly push the two towards the same door as him. "Once the door has been closed." "Who?" Naruto muttered, still having difficulty expressing himself. "Who are you?" Quote, comma, exclamation mark, quote. Sarah stood there, her eyes now in shock. She knew that this might be the cause of the memory-altering seal that Minato Namikaze have cast back then, but still, she felt pain after Naruto openly admitted that he didn't know her. However, "No, I know you. But I just can't remember." Naruto grabbed the right side of his face with his right hand, lightly gripping that part of his face, as if trying to browse his past memories. "Naruto-kun." Hinata then held Naruto's left hand with both her hands. She immediately used her Byakugan to trace if something was wrong with Naruto's chakra circulation, but wasn't able to detect anything, making her feel more worried for her fiancé. "So this is Naruto's fiancé, Hinata Hyuga-san." Sarah looked towards the girl who was showing affection and worry to Naruto. For a moment, she imagined herself being in her place, overlapping her image with Hinata's, supporting and worrying for Naruto about his current situation. She then shook her head. Indeed, the cage fulfilled her request. She was now able to see Naruto again. Naruto might not have remembered her through his memories, but seeing how Naruto was in pain trying to remember who she is, was more than enough for her to realize that somehow, in one way or another, remembered him within his heart. It was, indeed, more than enough for her. It should be. Sarah then wiped away the tears falling down her eyes with her sleeves, then approached Naruto and Hinata, the former still lightly gripping the right part of his head, while the latter still gripping Naruto's left hand with both her hands, her expression filled with worry for him. Sarah then gently kneeled in front of Naruto, then looked towards Hinata. "I'm sorry," she gently said to the Hyuga girl. "But for one last time, please let me hold him." Hinata nodded, but much to Sarah's surprise, Hyuga's left hand reached her right hand, then led it to Naruto's left hand. Now both their right hand were now clasping Naruto's left hand. "Why?" Sarah looked towards Hinata with a bewildered expression. "I know that this is the first time that we have met. However, after I saw your feelings and emotions for Naruto-kun, I can't help but feel that I can easily relate to those feelings that you were keeping this entire time within yourself." Hinata gave a gentle smile to Sarah. Hinata then placed her left hand on top of Sarah's right hand. "You know Naruto is who he is, not as what he is, am I right?" Yes, Hinata-san." Sarah's tears once again started rolling down her cheeks. Sarah then also placed her left hand on top of Hinata's left hand. Sarah then leaned closer, then have her forehead lightly touch the intertwined clasping hands between her, Hinata, and Naruto. All of a sudden, as if a key was used to unlock something, the very moment that Sarah's forehead touched the intertwined hands, a flash of memories came rushing into Naruto and Hinata's mind. The memories showed how Naruto traveled back in time to fight against Mukade, how he fought together with his father, Minato Namikaze, and also, how he protected and saved Sarah multiple times during the ordeal. He saw her blossomed from an annoying childish girl into a rightful queen of Roran. The sealed memories from the literal past have finally been unlocked. Naruto then returned to his real-life consciousness, then saw Sarah, her forehead still touching their intertwined hands with Hinata, her gesture seemingly desperate for him to be able to remember her. At that moment, Sarah then decided to let go of Naruto and Hinata's hands, then stood from her kneeling position. Without any other words, she went ahead towards the door where she came from while hiding her eyes through her bangs, attempting to leave the room on her own. Wait. Hinata tried calling Sarah, but she didn't respond. The Suna siblings who were listening outside the room had mixed feelings and reactions as they hear how the drama unfolded. After all, they still can't help but feel affected by the current turn of events that were currently unfolding on the other side of the wall. Before she could leave, Sarah stopped for a moment, then looked towards Naruto. Thank you for everything, Naruto. I'm glad that I was able to meet you even for one last time. She said with a sad smile. You don't have to worry about me, for who I am, or what I am to you. You already have Hinata-san right now. I am glad that she is the kind of girl whom you decide to spend the rest of your life with. I know, and now I believe, that she can make you happy. Hinata looked towards the red-haired girl, as tears were also forming in her eyes. Goodbye, Naruto. Sarah then attempted to take another step, this time, away from Naruto's life completely. Sarah. Naruto muttered, completely stopping Sarah's movement. Sarah looked towards Naruto with a stunned expression, eyes widened. Him suddenly calling her name made her feel weak, and her emotions felt like they were about to burst open. You idiot queen. Why did you follow me all the way here? You should have spent your time with your people. He yelled while standing up, his right index finger pointing to the former queen with his usual comical hyperactive demeanor, the gesture itself reminding Sarah of how her beloved knucklehead usually acted during the time they spent together in the past. Quote, exclamation mark, quote. The Suna siblings got surprised as they heard the sudden yell from Naruto. Hinata, on the other hand, gave an anxious reaction due to the sudden outburst from her fiancé. You remembered me. Sarah muttered, her eyes now once again starting to be filled with tears, but this time, not of sadness, but of happiness. Of course, my old man might have sealed my memories from back then. But I can now clearly remember you, Sarah. Naruto yelled once again towards her. I'll ask you again, why did you follow me all the way here? And before Naruto could finish his statement, Sarah tackled him in an affectionate, tight hug. She then buried her face into Naruto's chest, then released her long-kept emotions within her as she began crying like a lost child who just found her missing parent. Naruto then looked towards Hinata, as if afraid of what Hinata's reaction might be due to the sudden affection that she was receiving from another woman. But Hinata simply shook her head, then smiled towards him, with a silent, "It's fine," lip movement. Naruto then simply placed both his hands on the crying girl's shoulder, then gave her a small smile of reassurance, the very same smile that changed her as a person as she is.